This place wants us dead.
What could have done that?
There must be a bear.
A bear did that.
We found only one set of prints. Large, 20 inches across.
I do not believe it is an animal we battle.
Not a man, not a bear. Then what?
It's the ice, Georgie. It's only the ice.
Welcome to Ice Cold. The Double P Podcast Network looks at AMC's The Terror. Episode by episode. My name's Bubba. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and YouTube at Fit and Trim. That's FITTENTRIM at Fit and Trim on Twitter. And with me is someone who's been known to do double L, Liquor Larceny. It's Catfish. Catfish, how you doing this Monday night?
Well, I'm a little shaky. I'm down to my last of the 16 pilfered bottles, and you may need to take the microphone away from me for a while. But in the meantime, you can still reach me at CJGman67. I just might reply belligerently until I get rid of the shakes.
Catfish, once again, we're going over episode 5 of season 1 of The Terror. First Shot a Winner, lads, is the title of the episode.
Nice.
We got to get to it right up top. What is your ranking out of 10?
I am going to give this episode 8 triple T's.
Triple T's?
Yes, that is terrifying Tuunbaq tastings. Because as we've discovered, he really just likes just a hint, just a soupçon of a human being.
Yeah, he just samples a little bit.
And then he moves on.
Well, that's pretty good. 8 out of 10. You've been bullish on the whole
I think this
season.
might actually be my lowest, which I'll explain later. I think I've been mostly given it 9, so it's still very good. But to me, I guess this sets a lot of things in motion. There was that exciting bit, which I'll explain why was, but okay.
All right.
And what about you, Bubba?
Well, we may be on opposite pages.
Probably.
Because I'm so bullish on this episode that I can't go high enough. I'm going 10 double P's out of 10.
Double P's?
Well, double P's, normally it's a Double P Podcast Network.
Right, which stands for Packed Podcast.
That's true, but based on this episode, I'm calling it Plucked Piggies. This little piggy got frostbite, gone. This little piggy also got frostbite, gone. This little piggy ran all the way home and was chopped off because of frostbite. 10 out of 10. This had the drama I like. This had the ice cold dissing that I like.
Oh, there was some good stuff in there.
I loved that Tuunbaq attack. Tuunbaq for what? Tuunbaq for what? So, yes, we're very lighthearted. We get silly on the show. We always knew we wanted to get a bit silly because the show could be so oppressively heavy and serious and bad things are happening. But I thought this was just a great episode. I'm through the moon about this.
Love it. Love it. Well, that is great. Now, listen, Bubba.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about this on this podcast, but... well, we have talked about some of this, is that we have the entire Double P Podcast Network, and you can reach out to us and find us on Facebook, facebook.com/ the word double, the letter P, and the word podcasts. And on there, you'll see notifications of all the podcasts that we do. Now, we are right now close to the end of Season 3 of Ash vs. Evil Dead, and we have a great podcast, Ash vs. Evil Dead versus Bubba vs. Catfish.
So fun. Check that out.
We also do a similarly serious, yet with some lighthearted jocularity, dark humor, a podcast on Game of Thrones called the Joffrey Podcast, named for the greatest character in the history of the human race.
Love it.
And
King Joffrey, first of his name, first in your hearts.
If there's extraterrestrials, he's better than any of them as well. And in service to the Joffrey Podcast, Bubba, you and I will be at the Con of Thrones here in Double D.
Double D?
Yeah.
Dirty Dallas. That's right, folks. We're going to Dallas, Texas at the end of May to be part of the great Game of Thrones A Song of Ice and Fire convention there entitled A Con of Thrones. We're actually hosting a panel on Sunday.
Sunday.
Come down
May
27th.
Sunday.
So if you're in the Dallas area, if you're a big fan of Game of Thrones or even The Terror, come out and see us there. We want to see all our wonderful double L's.
Double L's.
Loyal listeners, because it's going to be very exciting. And heck, yeah, corner us, because we'll love to talk about this great AMC show, The Terror, as well as the book written by Dan Simmons, the novel that we read that's based upon this book. So exciting, so great.
And because you can reach out and touch us.
Oh, yeah.
And clip off our toes. Also, if you leave feedback, we love to read listener feedback on the show. We've been getting some lot of love for this podcast. People are loving The Terror. And so we got a lot of feedback tonight.
Yeah.
None of which I have.
Okay. Well, it's okay. Well, we're going to get to it at the end. We have so much I want to hold off to the end.
Okay.
But
so sneak peek.
But to let everybody know that we got so much. We got some from our good friend Mork at Extraordinary on Twitter. We got it from our spoiler alert, Hamlet is Dead on Twitter. Nathan Dawkins, Susan M. Dunkel, Goran Gogic. I hope I pronounced some of these names right. Aaron Lyons on the Facebook page. We also have our good buddy Matt Foster, who's at Fat Monster. Alexandra Sandu, I Am a Noble Woman 1, first name, last name, Constitutional Carrot, 306 Old Boyful, Frank Dodd, Mike R., and Morgan Cian. We're going to be reading your feedback at the end. There's just so much. We got to hold it off.
It's great to hear from Fat Monster again because he's a big fan of the Joffrey podcast, as we all should be. But he doesn't seem to sneak into some of the other shows that we covered. So it's good to have you back, Matt. Great to have you back.
Heck yeah. Everybody, just a couple more notes before we dive into this episode. We talked about the ratings, and last week on episode 4, The Terror was able to maintain 0.30 for the second week in a row with 1.11 million viewers. You may be wondering, if you're not here in the United States, what is cable TV? Well,
what's a million?
What's cable?
What's a million in metric?
So what's cable TV showing on Monday night? So we're going to ignore kind of the big broadcast networks that everybody sees, but cable TV in the infamous 18 to 49-year-old demo. What beats The Terror on a Monday night?
What does?
WWE Wrestling,
of course.
Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, Teen Mom, Vanderpump Rules, Leave It to Stevie, American Dad reruns, Fast and Loud, Rachel Maddow Show, Shifting Gears, Spring Baking Champion, Teen Mom, Young and Pregnant, Anderson Cooper 360, Hannity, Aaron Burdett, Tucker Carlson, Lawrence O'Donnell, American Ninja Warrior reruns, Laura Ingraham, and Chris Hayes.
I love Chris Hayes. He's my boy.
He's cool. But anyway, those are the type of shows that are currently beating The Terror in the 18 to 49 demo.
Now,
but still, we have over 1 million viewers in today's 500 options for
next
TV
week
shows.
You can tell us the shows that it's beating.
Oh man, that'll be a long list. That'll be a super long list.
Okay, all right. Because you know who people love? Tuunbaq. Oh, Tuunbaq.
Right my leg. Other thing I wanted to mention real quick, and I didn't know this stuff. I say that I went into reading the novel. I knew nothing about the Franklin expedition. I knew nothing about the HMS Terror and Erebus. So one thing that I saw that people were putting out there is that the Terror itself didn't start as an expedition vessel. The ship was a warship. In fact, it was part of, here in America, the Battle of Baltimore in the War of 1812, and it was part of the assault on Fort McHenry. So when Francis Scott Key was writing the Star-Spangled Banner, it was in part based on being shelled from the Terror.
All right. Well, that makes a lot of sense because for a naval expedition, you don't think you would give it such a frightening name. But if you're going to war with it, that's definitely the kind of name you want for a warship.
And so in 1836...
Not the Erebus. No one's afraid of the Erebus.
So in 1836... The Terror, because it had been built to withstand recoil from heavy mortars, they thought, well, it could probably withstand the pressure of polar sea ice.
No.
So it went to the Hudson Bay. At that point, in the Hudson Bay, the Terror was forced up 39 feet in the air, and it was trapped there for 10 months. Got out of that ice, and then it was part of this James Ross expedition with the Erebus down to the Antarctic in 1839. And
wow, I would have thought I would be just damaged goods at this point.
The final thing I want to say is that this is a bizarre show in that we're reviewing it week to week as it airs here on AMC. But if you join part of AMC's Premium Viewer Club, which I think is like $5 a month, you could see all 10 episodes immediately.
What?
Plus,
Wait, I can spend $5, watch them all, and then...
theoretically unsubscribe from the AMC Premiere Club.
Yeah, they'd be happy to have my $5.
But then also, if you're in a different country like the Netherlands, they didn't sell this show to an outlet in the Netherlands. They sold it to Amazon. So people in the Netherlands can buy all 10 episodes right now on Amazon and watch them. And so if you search The Terror on any social media, You'll see people posting pictures from later episodes. You'll see all this stuff being spoiled. So we're going to try to just not go to book spoilers, just do episode by episode as it airs here in the United States.
We read the books, and you know how I am. I couldn't spoil the book now if you put a gun to my head.
Speaking, what if we put a gun to Tuunbaq's head? First shot's a winner,
lads.
All right, so let's get to it. I loved this episode. It's funny, this is your lowest ranking, even though it's 8 out of 10. I just thought it started great and also ridiculous. This is theoretically a science vessel as well. So,
I think
they're going to try to measure wind and barometric pressure. This was crazy.
I don't think that's it. I think it's not the science. It's that every day in the captain's log, you're going to measure everything that you have. So presumably, even if you don't survive, people will know. To me, it seems like, you know what, today, let's not measure it. You know, if the thermometer goes below 50 degrees, let's not measure anymore.
Oh, yeah, negative 59 below? Give me a break.
52.
Oh, sorry.
But presumably that's Celsius, right?
Negative 52. And this one, I think.
And you know what we were talking about, too, is one thing we can't figure out is, maybe we need to do more research, how cold it is inside the ship. I mean, presumably, you know, these are older ships. They presumably have some weatherproofing, but I can't imagine it takes the temperature up to anywhere near temperate, like in the 40s or the 50s even. I can't imagine that it would do that.
Well, in the research, it says these boats were retrofitted, you know, with these steam engines. It was retrofitted with heating. But how much heating do you need when it's negative 52 degrees outside, dude?
A lot. I mean, you know, presumably you need a lot of coal or wood or whatever. I don't, you know, obviously maybe they needed to store less coal and more sweet whiskey.
If that was heating everybody up, what if they're just all right, we're out of coal, throw some more toes on the fire? I mean,
that would be a nice barbecue. Now, do we want to talk about our ice cold lines of the week first, or do we want to do as they come through?
Let's do them as they come through, mainly because there's so many great ones. But I think this character, help me out, his name was DeVoe?
DeVoe.
Yeah, he's saying, my foot's going a little hinky. How did he phrase it?
Horny. My foot's gone a little horny, sir.
And he's like, yeah, stamp it out. Keep it moving. Oh, my God. This is just terrible. Why are you doing this? I know you're saying in the captain's log, but...
Yeah, captain's log.
Dude, if my foot's gone a little horny...
screwed.
Holy smokes. So I saw that.
And the other thing is,
crazy.
Forget just keeping the steam engine going. You know, they've got these fires out there. And what would also be interesting, some research is, what do they have in there that can stay lit and will burn for a long time? Because they've got...
You assume it's whale, blubber, oil, maybe somehow? That's what I was guessing.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I guess you could, but it's so windy out there. I don't know.
Well, maybe one reason the Erebus seems so much warmer is it's packed to the gills with...
It is
packed to the gills with men. Hey, everybody.
It is super packed to the gills. And your boy JFJ, James Fitzjames.
Is he on the Catfish crew yet? Because he's on Bubba's boat. I bought JFJ stock when it was low, and I think it's going up in this episode.
What you don't understand is our boats are so close. He jumped off Bubba's boat, and now he's on Catfish's crew. He's steering the boat, but also the reason why he's on Catfish's crew is because he is a double C.
Double C?
Yeah, compass critter. He loves his compass. He loves to measure out, okay, how far is it, sir? Well, it's 7 compass measures, and it's 6.5 would have been okay, but 7 means we're screwed. He's not happy.
Oh, that's tough.
With what's going on there.
JFJ he's playing with this compass there, finding out how far away are we from anything from the bottom of this map. And in comes, this is important, Edward Little. Edward Little is like one of the lead guys on the Terror. I feel like this is his first episode to really shine and really say, hey,
true,
I'm here. And so JFJ was thinking it'd be like a meeting of command. And Little's like, well, it's a meeting of command without the commander, Captain Crozier. He didn't come, but he needs some stuff. We're here, to get some stuff, a.k.a. Liquor Larceny.
Now, that's one thing that I'm confused about, because this all seems to happen around the same time. And this guy's telling on Crozier. He's saying he wants 16 bottles. But then later on in the episode, he's like, well, I've only got 2 left. But then JFJ says, you've taken all of ours. So does he mean he took the 16 already? This is one thing that I was confused about.
That is a great question. Another thing is that it feels like JFJ's like, aren't you supposed to be bringing more supplies from the Terror here since all the human beings are here on the Erebus? This is ridiculous. Get them here.
Yeah, and JFJ says, you know what? I don't like the ladies, so get her off my damn boat.
Off my boat.
Now, this makes sense to me because...
Yeah, let's hear this. Is this a right move by James Fitzjames?
It's the right move. It seems to me the right move for a couple reasons, and that's why he jumped on the Catfish's crew, is because even though the people who went to go get her are on the Terror... And
they're still there.
Yeah,
Hickey's still there, and his crew's still there.
Yeah, well, whatever's left of Hickey's butt is still there. But they don't have any more animus towards this lady that, to me it seems, than all the rest of the crew. Mm-hmm. And there's more crew on the boat, on the Erebus. So that's like, let's get her off where there's less people who might be likely to hassle her. That's my feeling.
And when we see this, once again, it's Edward Little who gets kind of the spotlight episode here. So he has to go get Lady Silence. He sees she's built in these, I almost want to call them dream catcher-like things, these totem-like things that apparently are freaking out the crew. And JFJ's always like, take them down.
But she likes doing crafts. Look, she's got to keep herself busy while she's on the boat as well. So she's just swiping stuff and making little crafts with it.
And she's helping Henry Goodsir learn a new language.
What's interesting, though, is that...
It's like lynda.com, Lady Silence.
is that Crozier says, good sir, learn her language, when it seems to me that Crozier knows plenty of her language. I mean, he seems to struggle with it, but he seems to be able to say what he wants to say, which is, how do we kill Tuunbaq?
He might double S slur his speech anytime he tries to ask her a question. And now, what do you think of Goodsir saying, hey, I want to go with her. If she's leaving, I want to go with her. He seems, is this a quote-unquote romance because she's the only woman around for hundreds of miles? Is it he just loves learning and he's fascinated by the new culture?
He loves learning. He's actually been able to, A, get her to talk, and B, he's starting to learn, of course, which everyone makes fun of him for, and so...
Oh, yeah. Why don't we get to making fun of him? Why don't we get to some of these ice-cold moments of the night? So this doctor we've been calling...
Dr. Dicklick.
Dr. A-hole, who's actually Dr. Stanley. He's the doctor on the Erebus.
I presume.
And he doesn't have, I don't even want to call it a bedside manner. He's
been mean to him the whole time.
He has a bedpan manner.
and what's funny here is the flipping of the script as far as, I think in America we think the hierarchy is, doctors, they're fancy. But surgeon, that's like a fancier name. But here in this world, surgeon obviously means less than doctor. So Dr. Stanley, a.k.a. Mr. Dicklick, he's a little peeved with Goodsir because he says, you're all ready to go, but you're asking my permission, but clearly you don't need it. And Goodsir's like, does the captains want to make sure that, I'm not missed? And Dr. Stanley says...
Ice cold.
What's he say? I really wouldn't worry yourself there. Ooh, ice cold.
Oh, he even makes an ice cold crack. Be sure to invite us to the wedding, Dr. Goodsir.
Right, but then Goodsir comes back and he says, has anyone ever invited you to a wedding? And in fact, ice cold. In fact, it's so good that somebody else says to Dr. Stanley, is that the way it usually is? He says, no. So Goodsir is starting to get a better of opinion of himself, and we see that happen more on the Terror when he brings his concerns to the doctor on the Terror, and the doctor's like, well, you're pretty smart. You're kind of almost like a doctor yourself. Puff, puff, puff.
You know what? You're not just a surgeon. You're also a doctor.
Yeah, okay.
Update the LinkedIn page there, good sir. Now, JFJ, here's another thing I want to ask you about. It's a very subtle moment in an episode packed with incident. But JFJ, he's going around the ship. He's like, show me your mani-pedi. Dirty. You have so much time to get yourself clean, but admittedly, you don't have much time with a basin. what is going on here? Is this good that he's trying to keep up appearances? Like if he lets people just kind of be slobs and forget about chain of command and orders, that all hell will break loose? Is this good from JFJ, bad from JFJ? What do you think?
The way you set up the question, there's no way for me to answer except for yes, it's good, because
yes, it's good, sir.
Yes, it's good, sir. You've hit it right on the nail. I mean, they're stuck out in the middle of nowhere. They can't remember. They've got all these people who have all these jobs to do up on the deck, and you can't keep people up on the deck. There's nothing to do, so there's less work for people to do. And what's the devil hands is the idle playground. Idle hands is the devil playground. Whatever. It's just, you got all these rough guys, and if you don't keep them busy, if you don't keep them focused on their appearances, they're going to end up like Crozier, just a mess. So definitely that's the way to do it. Keep a sense of order and responsibility.
I want to give a shout.
The guys kind of seem to embrace it. Like,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to Mr. Collins, who it feels like we haven't really had a spotlight on since that early first 2-part episode that aired. He was the guy who wanted to rescue the man who had fallen overboard. He was the guy who submerged and sawed the ice away from the propeller. So Mr. Collins, he was on the Double B Bubba boat, but here he did have to tell his captain, James Fitzjames, yeah, they're taking all our liquor, dude. And so Collins, he's still on the Bubba boat, even though he was a narc.
Right. Well, the one thing I do see here that may kind of misread it, that he had already requisitioned the 16 bottles. So, yikes, a Rooney. I mean, Crozier, it's funny, we've seen him drink a little bit, but especially in this episode, they really poured it on. Like, every time we saw him, he was just like...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was drinking like there was an expiration date on those bottles.
Let me ask you this.
Is it going to be...
Can you get drunk driving ticket if you're just parked somewhere? Because he's boating while under the influence, but his boat is frozen.
Yeah, but here's the trick: if someone comes up to you, before they come up all the way, you make the other guy sit in front of the steering wheel, and you're like, "I'm not driving; he's driving."
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why he said JFJ is captain from now on.
Exactly.
Okay, so as they're transferring all this stolen booze, as well as Lady Silence and Mr. Good Sir from the Erebus to the Terror, somebody collapses. Is this maybe the best way to go? You freeze to death. You don't have to suffer anymore. Oh, just absolutely brutal. Mr. Hornby, Bruce Hornby is dead. That's just the way it is.
Oh.
And we come back, and inside the Terror, one of the few people who stayed, Hickey. Why the hell did Hickey stay? Do you think this is Crozier made sure Hickey stayed and his partner stayed to keep an eye on him?
Well, he is... I mean, it seems to me that from what Hickey said and other stuff, that he's basically kind of under house arrest.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not bad enough that he can't sit anywhere, but also that he can't sit in a very specific area.
Oh, man. But Hickey, he is just... Everybody's debating, and we're going to have some wonderful loyal listener feedback about this coming up. Hickey is working the angles, man. He is trying to do everything he can.
And another good move. I love my boy Good Sir because Hickey butters him up.
Oh, yeah.
And then Hickey tries to get some information, which isn't like... It seems to me isn't secret information, but still Good Sir's like... That was another great ice cold line because Good Sir says, "Does that really work with anyone, Mr. Hickey?"
Oh, ice cold! Oh, I love it.
That's so beautiful.
What do you think Hickey thinks seeing Lady Silence come back when he's the guy who pretty much kidnapped her and brought her here? Not good at all.
Well, I think he's learned. Hickey's one of those sneaky mofos.
Oh, he is.
He's trying to gather information. He's not going to do anything overt. Although I'd be a little worried about, him loose on the boat with Crozier like ranting and raving in his cavern going through the DTs.
Yeah, this is two wrongs don't make a right. One good guy who is being a good number 2 is Blanky. Now, Blanky has a rough episode, but, I want to give him a shout-out. He survived the Tuunbaq attack. But Blanky is almost like, how do you put him? Is a good number 2 willing to tell the captain, hey, you're screwing this up? this, admittedly, JFJ is the true number 2 of the expedition, but it feels like Blanky and maybe even Mr.
But
Little
JFJ
here.
was the number 2 for Sir John.
Right.
And I feel like maybe he could have said some things to him. I think Crozier's leadership style leads people to be a little less formal with him.
Okay, are you on Team Crozier? Has he totally abandoned the Catfish cruise?
It's sort of a good test of character. Mm-hmm. In the end, when you're in a situation that's hopeless like this, I don't know what it matters, whether you like JFJ or like, I'm going to keep my nails trim, I'm going to keep my whatever focus up, or if you're like Crozier and like, I'm going to drink every single last drop I can in the next 8 hours.
On this boat and that boat.
So within the course of an episode, I'm going to go through 14 more bottles, and then the last 2, and then I'm going to plead for everyone for help. So I don't know whether it's better to keep control of yourself or let go when certain death is the only final answer, but to each their own.
It makes the people who sing songs on the Erebus have a real weird thing. They're like 84 bottles of beer on the ship, 84 bottles of beer. Wait a minute, Crozier's men took them 56 bottles.
Now, Crozier does have a funny bit, though. And then we learn a little bit more about Crozier. He hates his freaking father. His father drank gin. So Crozier is like, that's it. I would rather go through the DTs than drink one drop of ever-loving gin.
Even though he gets liquored up, I think some of his commands here seem pretty good. He's like, okay, Jobson is like his steward, you almost want to say. Jobson, find out about dead Mr. Hornby's mate. Tell him, that we're going to take care of him. Gather up all of Hornby's stuff so that, it can get back to his family. Even though he's liquored up, there are some positive commands out of this. But he has kind of had a turn against Lady Silence himself, hasn't he? He seemed like, okay, you kidnapped her. We almost need to talk about this, and this admittedly ties back to last week's episode a bit, Catfish. I'm sorry. Last week, Crozier, he grabbed that boy off the ship, and he's like, let's go fight for Tuunbaq. The boy, R.I.P., whatever the hell happened to him, right? That kid got.
Yeah.
And he was kind of
Tuunbaq tasting.
Right. He kind of was a bit reckless, and let's try this. Where Hickey did completely disobey command, but Hickey succeeded. Hickey took a group out. Nothing happened to them. They survive. Crozier takes a kid out. The kid dies. Crozier was about to pretty much commit mutiny when Sir John Franklin was still around and like, hey, I'm going to be with part of this team to go get help. Suddenly Hickey does something that isn't quite as extreme, and Hickey gets all sorts of punished as a boy. So Crozier, is he taking out his own failures on Hickey, even though Hickey is really, he's starting to really reveal a kind of slimy side in this episode? Or is Crozier correct in attacking Hickey as much as he's attacked him? That's one of the things I saw people talking about
I don't
online.
think he was correct to attack him as much as he did. And I think once again you've nailed it. All I can do is say, I tip my hat to you, good sir. Things are just out of control, and that was the one sort of control he had, was to again.
All right, so let's get to Hickey. I have to be honest, I missed it way back in that second episode when Hickey jumped.
Some people thought, I didn't remember him actually seeing it.
Right.
Now, funny.
Hickey jumped in Young's grave and stole that ring. And now he gives it to Gibson. Oh, my Lord.
Previously on tonight, they showed that again, we'd be reminded that's when it happened. Now, my question, so he gives it to Gibson. My question is.
Mm-hmm. Serious question. Let's hear it.
Are Hickey and Gibson engaged now?
If they are, what are we going to get them?
Well,
where are they registered? Are they registered at the Erebus?
I know there's some loose tobacco about that's unclaimed.
But Hickey, he wants information. Would you say he's a bit like the Littlefinger from Game of Thrones here on the Terror, because he believes knowledge is power.
It's funny. It's not just that, but sort of the angularity of his face and the way he plays the role is very reminiscent of Littlefinger, although he has so much less power than Littlefinger. But it does seem he's got some machinations he's going to go through.
And even though he and Gibson, quote-unquote, are on a break, he's like, Gibson, close your eyes.
Gibson did
put your
seem
hand
a little
out.
happy to get it.
Yeah,
he felt a little...
Yeah. But then Hickey, once again, I feel like he's on this very quick heel turn, but he's like, Gibson asks Hickey, he's like, where'd you get this ring? He goes, from somebody who didn't need it anymore. That is an ice-cold theft of giving away a dead guy's ring. Whoa, Hickey.
But you know what? I do have something for their wedding.
What's
I
that?
came up with a little song.
Oh, no.
A home for two in a big igloo. That's Gibson and Hickey.
It was a short song.
That's right. That's right.
Just really not even a
'cause
chorus.
You don't know that there's other parts. Then the guys come in. That's Gibson and Hickey.
Okay, so let's get to some of Hickey's compatriots in the stealing of Lady Silence from last week. They have to bring Hornby's body down to the infamous dead room. The worst place on the ship. That's where we're putting the dead for right now. And one of these guys, he is just freaking out. He's like, there's Strong down there. There's Evans. I hear them.
He really feels like there's spirits here.
Oh, yeah.
And the boy,
Oh, yeah.
the guy, you're going to kill me for this not knowing, but the guy who found Hickey and Gibson in the first place.
It's a guy. No, I'm not going to kill you. It's a guy named Irving. I had to actually study to try to learn some of these names. So Irving is trying to boss this guy, get down there and put this body there.
Irving, we saw before, and again, we don't really know what the mores of this time are and being on the ship and everything. We don't know if how cool other people would have been with Gibson and Hickey. But this guy shows us once again that he has a very strong and hard Christian faith.
Oh yeah, blasphemy.
Because yes, I've never, there was those ridiculous things for a while. Some people saying, scandalized by the Harry Potter books because the witchcraft against even though it's fantasy. But
he's a witch.
I've never heard anyone say like, if you say you saw a ghost, that is blasphemy to our Lord. So this guy's got some real strong feelings, and basically they get into a little foo-fa-raw.
And who comes up? Who protects his team? Who's building his team? Hickey. Hickey's like, go grab a lamp. I'll do it for you. Hickey, he is working the angles, man. I said it last week. I want to say it again. Crozier is cooked. He's sauced. He's gone. There aren't many men here on the Terror. At this point, who are you going to listen to? Drunk Crozier or your buddy who will throw a dead body in the dead room for you, Hickey? Once again, I don't want to get close to spoilers, but this scene of going in the dead room, and as the camera slowly gets closer and closer, man, I got a bit tense. Why am I going 10 out of 10? Even this moment, which seemingly is just two guys putting a dead body in the morgue, for lack of a better word, there was something about it. I was very affected. I thought it was a very effective scene. All this creaking, man, the Terror is nothing but noise. How are you going to sleep with the ice crushing the ship like that? Oh, I loved it. And let me say, if this comes from the book, this dead room, we might be down here a bit more. Loved it. Have we reached any part, Catfish, where you were talking about this is your lowest ranking possibly of the year? Any things that we've gone through so far that haven't worked for you? In the episode, we're only halfway through covering it.
I suppose it'll pay off later. I just feel like they've got so many things going on that the Hickey machinations are. That's like it's almost too much for me right now.
Okay. There is a brief scene of a
Klingon warrior,
of a Marine in his red uniform. I believe this guy's name is Tozer. Hopefully, not dead, clipped off Tozer. And he's talking to the guy who we saw last week. Tuunbaq ripped off his skull, and this guy is still alive. And because he was a buddy, people are trying to talk to him, keep him happy. Is this a story really about people surviving and coming together under difficult circumstances? Because there are lots of elements of that in the show, in addition to all the million terrible things happening. I mean, and then he puts a little cloth over his open wound. I mean, oh God, it's just too. If I got in that situation, just toss me to Tuunbaq and let him have his way with me. Are you kidding? No way. Just, put a cloth on my open brain and I'll be fine. I'm going to, I'm going to let Crozier back in my boat. We're going to share the booze. We're going to go down drinking. Okay, so they're doing more scientific tests on the Terror. They're firing this cannon off. And what does that teach us again? Because it's like something, light moves faster than sound. I didn't get quite what was happening with this cannon experiment up top. But we're going to ignore that for a bit because it is time for the cross-examination of Lady Silence. Lady Silence, I will say this about the book. She does not speak in the book. There's a reason why she's called Lady Silence, is she doesn't say anything. Crozier in the book does not speak the language.
They should have changed her name for the show to Chatty Cathy. Because she does not fit in her name.
But I actually kind of like the fact they're allowing her to talk. I like the fact that they've allowed Crozier to understand the language. Because even this exchange, once again, every moment, if you give it 10 out of 10 like I did, you kind of have to love every moment. And I love this moment in Good Sir. Is Good Sir right or wrong when he's like, she likes the light touch? What do you think there, Catfish? Who do you go with? Because these guys suspect her, and now it feels like drunk Crozier really suspects her.
Well, I don't know whether it's necessary for her to have a special personality to like the light touch. Mm-hmm. I think if you just said, let me put myself in her point of view. Her father's been killed. We went and swiped her. She's probably afraid. I think a light touch is appropriate here. Not to mention that, Crozier is like, up to this point has been, he's sloppy in his command, although he has a heavy hand on the whip. It would seem to me that he's not a one about details. And like you said, he's the one who has been most sympathetic to her. So I think this is a symbol of Crozier is like, he knows things are about to get bad for him. It's desperation. He wants to learn how to figure out. I think if he thinks he can get rid of Tuunbaq, that'll kind of exert control in his life again. What he fails to realize is that he's still going to be stuck in the damn ice. Now they learned his name.
Yeah, they learned the Tuunbaq tune.
Tuunbaq, oh Tuunbaq, baby now come now Tuunbaq.
So in the room is kind of his number 2 on the ship, Little, who once again, or Blanky, I guess technically is his number 2 on the ship, but Little is part of the team here on Team Terror, and also Good Sir. And I love that his men didn't just, he was always so honest with Sir John Franklin, but when he's like, hey, this woman, we're not going to give her any protection. Screw her. And then Blanky and Little are like, dude, she could be afraid of this thing. Chill out, man.
But let's not skip over the most important thing that's learned here, and is why I think they decided to have her talk on the show. This is the first time we get really somebody saying what people had been alluding to or questioning before, that this is not just a bear we're dealing with, okay? This is well, that's
again, the exact words that Hickey said last week.
Right. But now we have that, other people have heard the Tuunbaq legend, and so it is a evil spirit, well, they just say spirit, who poses as an animal.
Oh, yeah. But also, we've talked about everybody's ice cold. Because she's Lady Silence, she doesn't get to say too many ice colds. But she drops the hammer on Crozier. Dude, why do you want my help? You don't want to live. Ice cold. Ice cold.
She is completely right there.
Yeah, she is. When you act like this, you don't want to live. You don't care. Whatevs.
Well, what this interestingly sets up, though, is that, what I think is going to happen is, I think when Crozier comes back, he's going to have a renewed sense of purpose.
Let's hope.
So then he'll butt heads against JFJ. I thought that JFJ was going to try to usurp him, but basically what's happening is Crozier is giving up all his power.
Yeah, well, how about when JFJ shows up in this scene demanding, hey, you're raiding my ship and I've got all the men, you took all the liquor. JFJ popping up, that was like a hello.
Yeah.
Guess who's coming for liquor?
He gets there right as someone is helpfully translating Lady Silence saying, you don't want to live.
Ouch.
Bad timing.
Say what you want to. I keep talking about you're a number 2, you're a number 1, whatever. Over the whole expedition, JFJ is now the number 2. When he walks in and drunk Crozier is like, get the hell off my ship. Oh, that's terrible.
He's lost it, and then he gets snippy with everybody else, too, all his buddies. That's when it's all done, where he's like, you know what?
And he could have got Blanky killed. He's like, Blanky, screw it. Everybody out of here. Blanky, up on deck. Thanks a lot, jerk. But admittedly, this is, in the end, going to get him to clean up his act. But holy smokes, this has got to be rock bottom of Crozier's lost weekend.
No, I think next week we'll see rock bottom.
Oh, yeah, coming out of it. We're only a month further along, so theoretically we're in December of the year. We're going in the second winter that's been trapped in the ice. Oh, man, this is just brutal. But this is a good standout episode, not only for Little, who I keep mentioning, but how about Blanky? Blanky goes up on deck, and he's manning up, dude. He really comes through. They're there. They're on the deck. We find out another Tuunbaq gets somebody else on the deck, and he kind of puts himself first. He's like, guys, jump over the side of the ship, go hide in the ice. I love that. R.I.P. Darlington, who is the guy who gets got. But I mentioned that I don't remember so many specifics from the book, but this specific scene of Blanky surviving the attack with the beast, I do remember this. This is one of my favorite parts from the book. I don't think it goes down exactly as it does in the novel. To be honest, right now, we're seeing Blanky set out into the cold. I think...
I learned something new here tonight. Because
what's that?
I'd heard the word gunnel, and I'd read the word gunwale.
That's how you always read it?
I always read it as gunwale. It's one of those words, and everybody has their own, where they've been reading it their whole lives and had never associated the right pronunciation with the word written on the page. So, Catfish learned something new tonight. He already know, don't mess with evil spirits posing as animals.
No, that is not good. But I just love this whole moment. One of my favorite moments in it is... maybe it's a contrived horror movie cliche where these people are trapped outside. We can't get them back down into the, we can't get them back down into the safety of the ship. But we're in the ship, and it's the Terror's doctor, not the Terror's new surgeon, Mr. Goodsir, but the Terror's doctor, who I believe is Dr. McDonald. He sees this creature come over the stern, and he sees him. It's a great shot out the window where you just kind of see this leg going up onto the boat. And I just love that moment. Yeah, it's Dr. McDonald. So good. So good. I love this whole section. Tuunbaq does not, I'll admit, we don't see him too much. He doesn't look exactly how I pictured him from the book.
Okay.
But I thought this was great. Was great.
So now I'll say it. The whole scene was very exciting.
Uh-oh.
The show is mostly in darkness. Mm-hmm. We've only seen mostly the shadow of Tuunbaq.
Right.
Okay, we're not going to see, I don't know how much we're going to see Tuunbaq, but I was very disappointed by Tuunbaq.
By how little we saw of him or his actions? What do you mean?
No, I was disappointed by the CGI look of Tuunbaq.
Okay, yeah. I could definitely see that. Even though he's you're talking about the CGI look of him, we don't get many looks of him. He's hidden in shadows.
That's what I'm saying. Since we don't get so many looks at him, please, when we do get a decent look at him, even where it's in shadows, let's make it look not so fakey.
Okay,
it hurts.
I could totally see that.
That's the entirety of why my rating was low for this episode. We're already halfway through.
Yeah, this is the halfway
they've done a great job of only showing bits and pieces of them, but now... this is it. This is the big-ish reveal, and it's very disappointing. So I imagine the more we see of him, the more I'll be disappointed by it.
Could be. Certainly. You would think when you're going to have...
You'd want it to... The first time you see him, that's when you'd want him to look the best.
Yeah, but I would also say when you have a CGI creature like this, you would assume it would look the best when you could hide it in, kind of this mist, this clouds, this snow,
well, right.
this darkness.
It's never going to be bright, so that's what I'm saying. You also... It's not like they had to do something... amazing,
no.
And especially when holding it back from us for so long.
All right,
I will say this: it reminds me a little bit of, I went to see that recent ridiculous King Kong movie, which was a blast. So much fun.
You mean the Kong Skull Island?
Yeah, Kong Skull Island. And honestly, you see Kong within the first 5 minutes, which you'd think would be a mistake, but it was so impressive. You're like, oh, hell yeah. So I also like it when things are slowly revealed at the end and the legs and whatever. I'm totally good with that. Leave it if you're gonna not leave it to our imagination though. You're going to have to come strong.
You got to come
Sorry.
strong. No problem. Hey, listeners, go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/double P podcast. That's the word double, the single letter P, the word podcasts with an S on it. Facebook.com/double P podcast. So you may not like the CG, and I could certainly understand it, but listeners, I want to know what you think. But do you at least like Blanky?
Oh, it's very
fought it off when his leg gets scratched, and suddenly his leg is exposed to the cold and the elements, and he's wrapping his leg in that rope because this guy's pretty smart. He knows what he's supposed to do.
Honestly,
I loved all those
while you're
moments.
watching this, you're thinking two things. One, this mofo's not going to survive. And two, once they pull out the cannon, they're never going to hit it with the cannon. So,
First shot's a winner, lads.
Two surprising things happen. He does survive, and unlike Crozier, who probably would have just jumped right into Tuunbaq's mouth as much as he cared about life, this guy really tried his hardest, and they got him with the cannon. So, success.
Huzzah!
Show over. Tuunbaq killed.
I'm not so sure.
Oh,
We
okay.
didn't.
All right.
You didn't see the body, but Tuunbaq took
I
it.
saw where the body was, and then I saw that the body was not there.
Right.
And then I heard Tuunbaq roaring in the distance. So I pretty much know that. Listen.
That means Tuunbaq saw the first Halloween movie at the end of
Exactly. Now, Tuunbaq already seemed like he was pretty dedicated.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not sure that hurting him is going to make him any more angrier than he already was. But if possible, he could be a little angrier.
But once again, as terrible as things are, these guys are able to come together and shoot it and hit it. This is incredible. Good work. Everybody's there. And this Tuunbaq escapes. Oh, boy. We just saw the scene of the guy getting frostbite and losing half of his skin because he accidentally touched the cannon. So good. And this is going to be the impetus to sober up Captain Crozier, which certainly needs to happen. If this team has any hope, the number one has got to be sober, for the love of Pete, for good sir's sake.
Now, when he, I forgot the last kind of ice cold, I'm not sure exactly how he meant it, was when JFJ says to Crozier, "Are you determined to be the worst kind of first?"
Yeah.
Two?
Right,
But he's already has been a first. Does a first mean like the one who's in charge of everything?
Yeah, well, technically, remember, Sir John Franklin looked at Crozier when Crozier was his number two, and he's like, "You're the worst second ever." And so now it's like, theoretically, that got back to JFJ. Sir John Franklin wasn't a good secret keeper. And so theoretically, JFJ is suddenly saying, yeah, all right, you were the worst second ever. Now you're in line to be the worst first. Ooh.
Congratulations. He went from worst to first to worst again.
We didn't mention that Lady Silence, she saw this and said, "Later, losers."
And Crozier
lets her go.
makes another kind of turnaround here and lets her go rather than saying, "Get her, boys."
Yeah.
It's Crozier.
That's one way to get a woman off your ship if they're unlucky.
He is off my crew altogether.
Of course, there's another way to get a woman off your ship if she's unlucky. Feed her some of this canned lead food poisoning, possibly. Poor old monkey down. We got some animal testing to end this episode because good sir, after he sees kind of the work that our good boy Lady Silence did, he goes in and he starts testing this food himself. Oh, boy. What could go wrong?
Well, when you say testing it himself, that doesn't include eating it himself.
No.
Although presumably he's eating something.
Jacko gets to enjoy it. Jacko, who's really a Jillo. Crozier, do you think it's a good idea putting JFJ in command? I think you have to. It's the chain of command. There's nothing you can do.
Well,
but boy.
there's only one problem with this, and they'd already talked about it earlier, and that was, look, who knows how worse the weather's going to be. It's clear you're not safe on the ice anyway, so it's kind of interesting that JFJ showed up. He was just senior sick of Crozier's shit. So he can't be there all the time and also be on his ship. So... I don't know if JFJ is going to take a vacation on the Terror, but in the meantime, you're very right to be worried about our boy Hickey and his evil, evil plans.
Well, how about this? Hickey, he's building up his team, and Team Crozier is currently trapped in the closet trying to sober up for, a month, 2 months?
Hey, no,
he even gave
said-
away his gun.
he
He's like,
said-
Little, take my gun.
He said it would be a week, but that would be a rough week.
Can you really? Should we go to, what are those?
Well, I mean, just as far as like being completely like raving out of his mind, having the
so
shakes,
the painful
the whole
shakes is
thing,
going to be the week.
all that, yeah, yeah, and then he'll be like, but about 4 days in there, he's going to be like, "Give me the gin,
give me the rum like my terrible dad used to drink." All right, so Catfish, that's it. So you went down 2 points mainly because the big team we're on, hashtag Team Tuunbaq, didn't come through in the CGI. Hopefully, listeners, you loved it. Listeners, I want to say once again, we get so many great comments that if you're waiting for the if you're waiting for the YouTube posting to come up, that always comes up last. If you go and subscribe to it on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play Music, all this stuff, you'll get it as soon as it drops. We record these on Monday nights after the episode airs on AMC here on the West Coast of the United States. USA. Subscribe. Get some of those downloads up. We want you to join in, and we want you to join in and tell your friends to join in too, just because we love this feedback, and we're going to get to it right now. Our first feedback is from our good Double P podcast partner, Mork. What did Mork say, Catfish?
Well, he said hot lettuce, fit and trim.
That's where I'm from, Atlanta, Georgia.
And, Pineapple City, CJG Man 67.
What's Pineapple City there, Catfish?
Apparently that's Honolulu. That is where I grew up. Are finally starting to understand what it's like growing up in Minnesota. Oh, dear.
Hashtag ice cold.
Super cold.
Isn't it great for AMC that it's airing it now here in 2018 when we're currently in April, and so many people have been suffering through cold and freezing points. Have you seen that here? The East Coast of the United States really, really cold.
No, a friend of mine who lives in upstate New York sent me a picture. He's like, it's April 6th. And he had snow all over his yard.
We had our good buddy, good double L, Nathan Dockin. He wrote, Crozier is more than welcome aboard the Double D.
Double D?
Dock and Dinghy. So he's getting in on his crew, too.
Oh, yeah.
He says, dude can hold his liquor. And he can also hold your liquor and your liquor.
He will hold everyone's liquor.
Nathan writes, he'd be fun in a beer pong tournament.
As long as it's not gin.
No.
All right, and Susan M. Dunkel says,
oh, we love Susan.
Tuunbaq winter is full of terror, and she shows she's got a great picture.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
From Game of Thrones.
Oh, it's a White Walker on top of a dead polar bear.
Yeah, exactly. And then she said, or terrors if you're the Royal Navy. And she has a picture of Sir John's wife. She's terrorizing the Royal Navy.
Oh, man, come on.
And Goran Gojic says, you guys are hilarious. Ice cold.
Thank you, Goran. Everybody, please. We're doing this just to communicate with you and talk with you. So, yeah, any comments, Facebook page, let's hear them.
All right. Eric Lyon says, love the newest podcast. My take on Hickey's secret package, snuff or tobacco?
That's Aaron Lyons, yes.
Aaron Lyons, sorry. Something left in secret is a sign of camaraderie from his fellow shipmates to tell him that he's not alone.
I think that's exactly right. Don't you think that, hey, Hickey, you went and got Lady Silence, that's cool. Have some of my tobacco.
Also, as harsh as the punishment seems to us now, imagine what a fine line you have to walk as a captain in that situation. If you allow the people to do what they want, even if it was in your master plan, and all sense of order goes to shit, then again, anger the troops too much, and you've got a mutiny on your hands, which I imagine is probably coming very soon. It's a fine line, but he's in a unique position of being a new captain on a ship that's in very, very dire straits, if you'll pardon the pun. Thoughts? She says, my thoughts are he was drunken and out of control, and he could have given his punishment to him as a man.
Oh, that's a good call. Aaron, this sounds silly. We try to be silly to liven up this dark, depressing show, but when you said it was a fine line, I was going to say, Hickey has 30 lines across, fine lines across his tush.
All right, and Matt Foster at Fat Monster also chipped in.
He just wanted to let us know he was going to start watching episode 4, and he's going to be caught up to watch this episode 5 with us. That's great.
Good.
He goes, I really like this show so far, but it seems like there should be more chapped lips. He He goes, I have to turn down the AC while watching to set the mood. Great point, man.
That's great. Yeah, right? You turn it down, you're like, oh my God, it's 60 in here. I need blankets. And meanwhile, they're at minus 52.
Alexandra Sandu. She wrote, completely off topic, but why aren't you guys doing reviews of Legion? Personally, I'm not at all into superheroes or comics, but Legion gives me such a David Lynch feel, and she's a big fan of ours from the Twin Peaks The Gifted and the Damned podcast we do. She goes, Legion has me intrigued. I'd actually like to hear your perspective on Legion from somebody who appreciates the comics as well. Well, let me say, I loved season 1 of Legion. Now, we're not doing a podcast about it. We apologize. We did this kind of for fun, and we could have done one, but I really only have seen the first episode of season 2 of Legion. How do you feel about the first season of Legion, Catfish?
I enjoyed it once I really gave up worrying about plot. And I just
the first
took
season
it,
I thought was okay.
I took it almost as a... But there were so many things of like, is this real? Is it not real? We go along for a while and it seems like we're real. I did enjoy it when I thought of it more as a tone poem rather than a show. I really like that lead actor, Dan Simmons.
Oh yeah,
he's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, so good on Downton Abbey and a million things he's actually been in.
Oh yeah, no, he's also. He's been a lot of good things, and he really is. It's funny because he was such a chipper guy in Downton Abbey.
Oh yeah.
And
Matthew.
Yes. Oh, and he was, the blonde and whatever. He was just so precious. But he's really worked on. He's done some dark movies in America, like some characters, some really dark characters that I really enjoyed.
And he has a pretty good American accent on Legion as well.
He does. He did this great movie called The Guest, which
I haven't seen it.
It's sort of an interesting. If you like The Legion, I think you'll like The Guest. It is a very, very cool, interesting movie, and he plays a very dark character in that. So I'm a big fan of Dan Simmons. I like the show. I just feel like I'm older now. Sometimes it feels like too much work for me.
Okay, all right. Let's get to some of these people telling us what they thought these lip disease from last week was.
Okay, got it.
I Am a Noble Woman 1 wrote, it's the lack of vitamin C. She believes that, the men are singing in episode 3, and the guy who had the terrible gums, he's the guy who couldn't remember anything. And she goes, his gums were turning black, and which she believes is a sign of scurvy, which Constitutional Carrot also said black gums were a sign of scurvy. And he also wrote that, the stuff in the pouch Hickey got was loose tobacco. English love to roll their cigarettes in the day. So it feels it's really lead poisoning they're going towards in the show instead of scurvy on this, don't you think?
The only reason why I'll disagree with our double L's is because if there was one thing that doctors on ships knew about in those days...
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's what Sir John
scurvy.
Franklin was afraid of.
And they don't feel like it's scurvy. They've seen a lot of scurvy. Maybe it's super scurvy, but it really feels like they've had a little bit too much vitamin N.
Vitamin N?
Yeah, nails.
Somebody who on YouTube somehow ended up with the username, first name, last name, just wanted to tell us, great job, guys. Really loving these reviews. Thank you so much. Somebody on YouTube entitled 306 Old Boy Full said, there's no season 2 coming in a frowny face. Now, this was always pitched as an anthology series, kind of like what you would see on American Horror Story, where one season is kind of one story tale, and then the second season is a different horror story tale.
I prefer that. I was so shocked.
And so the Terror is pitched by AMC. Right. Is if it comes back for season 2, it was always going to be a completely new story.
I was pleasantly surprised by the end of American Horror Story because I didn't realize that that's what it was at that point. I thought, okay, they're going to have to do all these things to delay it, and they really wrapped it up nicely. Mm-hmm. I don't think that the story of the Terror could survive a 5-year arc.
Not when everybody's doing so bad. This is rough.
No, I don't think it could. I think 1 year is right. Mm-hmm. We'll get a nice conclusion to it. And then we'll move on. It's just surprising that they've taken a very specific book, a pre-existing property, and are saying that, I wonder if next year is also going to be cold focused. You know what I mean? Is it going to be the same kind of thing, or then they're going to go do a completely different thing with it? That'll be my question.
Well, hopefully, and based on the ratings, it feels like they're doing well. Maybe not great, but good. So hopefully if it comes back, they'll do something with as much effort put into it as this. Tuunbaq didn't turn out perfect, but I think they've put some real effort into this. So caps off to the showrunners.
I mean, not just the effort they've put in, but the fact that even without the supernatural elements, they really have put us in a time and a place that I feel like we haven't seen before. I mean, you've seen stories of people shipwrecked and all kinds of stuff, but to see people trapped in the ice like this, it's just really takes to something that we don't see a lot. And so I think that's what's special about this show. So for them to do something, like, okay, now we're going to do something at a circus would be very off brand for it for next year's.
Okay. Tuunbaq is one of the circus animals.
Come see the amazing Tuunbaq.
Let's go. A couple more feedback from Tuunbaq.
Tuunbaq's feedback.
Frank Dodd wrote, the scene where Crozier interrogates Hickey is so deep, it's cinematic. It rewards a second viewing. As you watch Hickey detail what he saw, he's animated, while his fellow quote-unquote witnesses, who came along but probably saw very little, if anything, are stoic, arms at their side.
Yeah.
That's standard in the British Navy. You're presenting the facts. You're not telling a story. But when Hickey goes out of bounds, Fitzjames stops him for a bit, but it's clear that he seeks a connection / favor or understanding. I mean, Hickey seeks something with Crozier. Watch Hickey's loud gestures when he's pointing at the table. In the end, Crozier, drunk, thinking of the Irish connection, feeling morose about the girl, and desperate for some sort of command, he can't stand the common connection he had with Hickey. Both Irish, but Hickey could outflank him without the burden of command. How dare Hickey, who's able, with his accent to blend in, think he could serve Crozier solutions up on a silver platter? After all, Crozier sacrificed. So here we are. Sir John was wrong, and Crozier was right. But is Crozier wrong? Is he as bitter and hamstrung by his past as Sir John was of his? Is he, get ready for it, ice cold?
Nice.
Absolutely love the time you guys devote to this show. Makes me think about the show in a big way. Oh, thank you so much for that note, Frank.
That was, forget the nice words he said about us, which I will never forget. I'll put them on my tombstone. That was a very, very carefully considered and intelligent comment. So I'm glad that you gave it so that we could at least have one of those on tonight's podcast.
An hour into the podcast, we went intelligent.
We finally get a deeply considered thought. So that is very much appreciated. Now, Mike R. says, the new illness might be lead poisoning.
No, but that Mike R., good call, Mike R.
It plays a big role that only the officers were eating the canned food from day one. And by 1848, 9 officers had died compared to 15 seamen.
Ouch.
Now, Morgan,
we may not pronounce your last name correct. We love it. Keep giving us his feedback.
Morgan says, I absolutely love the storytelling and the pacing, and the earlier episodes are very Victorian English. Sir John, highborn English, and my man Crozier, lowborn Irish Catholic papist, which brought about all the ice-cold conversations. It reminds me of the Tom Hardy series Taboo. You know what? It's funny. It doesn't remind me of that as well.
I only saw a couple of those. I did not see the whole
way through. It's even though he's got money and it's there, there are some fancy people in it, you get a sense of a real sense of the time, and no matter how much money you had, it was a dirty and gross place to live. So it was really good. I just caught up on the podcast. Very entertaining.
Thank you.
I can't wait to get the book and enjoy the series with you guys. One other thing from the earlier podcast, I'm going to have to rewatch over the conversation about the possible use of Mary Jane.
Oh, yeah, that was...
I wonder if it was Amali, the early English version of drag queen.
That was Mary Ann. I won that.
Mary Ann and a millionaire. And wow. Well, that was some great feedback. I don't know why you saved it to the end, because if I'd have known we'd had a lot of feedback, I wouldn't have had to try to sound intelligent, because our listeners were far more intelligent than I was on that one. So next week's episode...
Episode 6, it's entitled A Mercy. With the end of their provisions in sight, officers contemplate an 800-mile walkout while planning a party to raise the men's worsening spirits. Whoa.
I'm going to say...
Oh, boy.
On the invitation, I'm going to note very carefully, no whiskey. Gin and rum only.
Would you walk 800 miles? We'll get to that next week. Listeners, thank you so much. All we want is feedback. Keep giving us this feedback. Please go to that Facebook page, like the page, follow the page. I'm begging.
You're begging?
I am begging. I am going out there like old Blanky. I'm giving my leg just so you can get some likes and follows on the Facebook page and download the podcast, please. You can find me on Twitter at Fit and Trim. That's FITTENTRIM at Fit and Trim on Twitter. And I'm so overwhelmed and glad to have on this podcast with me my good buddy Catfish.
And you can hit me up at CJGman67. Like Crozier, I'm too drunk to sign up for too many things. You can only find me on Twitter. But
yeah,
you'll find us next week on Ice Cold.